Hey guys, Rob and Charlie causing some trouble on a Saturday. Rob brought over his W5s, absolutely bone stock, never touched, and we decided to take a look at them and flow them and see what we got. Rob's here so we can interject anytime he'd like in this video.
Hey everybody.
As we can see, it's very similar to an LA chamber, which I'm good with. I like the LA chamber. When we were doing LA heads, I remember saying how much I liked the shape, and the way we were getting the liquid flow in the chamber was really good. Now these are bone stock, no porting whatsoever. But the W5, well, Rob, you can tell us a little bit about the W5s.
I don't know where to go with it. They have the stock head bolt attaching amount, so it's kind of like a stock replacement head, but not, because they raised the ports, they extended the intake runners. It's more of a race head. A lot of the Mopar guys like to call this the aluminum W2, and while there's a lot of similarities, there's also a few departures, especially on the first W2 introductions that were open chamber. These closed chamber heads are somewhere in the 59 cc area, I think it was. These heads have a 202.16, and I believe Mopar said that they flow 260 at 500 or
600, you said.
600, yeah, it was 600. It was 600. And the earlier W5 heads had a bad reputation. The later ones, where they said they have the blue plug, were supposed to be better, but the casting company didn't use the greatest aluminum and the greatest casting technique. So these heads can be a hit and miss. But if you have a good set of heads that can be well ported out, these things can flow really, really well. I've had reports of 330, 340 CFM, which is absolutely outstanding for just a regular, simple, cylinder head replacement. So these are in the race territory. They also take rockers that need the stands, so you just can't use your typical bolt-on replacement, like Harlan Sharps or comp rockers with the shaft. You need stands with them. It makes it a little bit more of a pain in the backside to set up your valve train geometry, but once you get that valve train geometry all settled and squared out, exactly where that stand is supposed to sit, and it's it could vary a lot with the way the rocker's designed, how much up front and back behind the fulcrum point is, and exactly how the rocker's designed even outside of that. It's a big ball of spaghetti mess, and when you start to understand it and you figure it out, you're like, ah! And these heads can really, really help produce some power. Typically, a well-ported set and a pretty well sorted out car and engine's drivetrain setup can get you into the nines without getting ridiculously light and crazy on how light the car is and how monster of a motor you have. It's a very capable head if you have a good one. Unfortunately, you're going to end up rolling the dice when you get one. So I rolled the dice. I got a little impatient on the introduction of the Victor head, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting, and I said, screw it, I'm just going to jump in on some W5s and cross my fingers. So here are a set, like Charlie said, completely bone stock. This is one of the few times it's been out of the box. The valve job stock, no porting work, everything is just as it's sent in the box to you when you pick it up from Mopar Performance. So I don't know. Let's look at the head, and we could see that what's what with it. We can go over a few points.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, as you can see, we got a pretty decent liquid splatter on the bowl. It's really not bad for a stock head, and you can see on the valve, it's got a good coating on the valve. These are 202s, like Rob said, no back cut. 1/6, no back cut. 3/8 stem. That's what they come with. They come with 3/8. We could change them out and put a smaller stem in there, but I don't think that's planned for these heads because they are brand new. Let's take a different look at this intake port. Okay, notice the openings are tall rectangular instead of the ovals that the iron W2s were. And if we take a good look right down its throat, you can see we have a big bolt boss on the shared wall, which is definitely a bit of a restriction right there. You can actually see the shadow. You can see the shadow where some Dykem was actually hitting that bolt boss. Okay, so if we just straighten that out, we'll get a better pattern on our bowl. Overall, it's a very nice design. I really like these heads. The short side is really well designed. I think probably just needs a little more width. It's actually relatively straight. Does not have a lot of layback, so it should be the way it's designed. It should have nice mid-range flow numbers. We'll take a look at the flow numbers in a bit, but it's got looks like about a 5-angle valve job. Let's see if we can get on there. But that one throat cut is really deep. I think I would probably modify that a little bit. Let's take a look at that exhaust port. Okay, the exhaust port is actually quite nice. It's just a little chunky around the guide boss itself. It needs a little bit of work. The rest of it looks really good to me. Yeah, we'll have to check the throat size and so forth, but it does not have a radius valve job. I would put a radius valve job on that. I probably would not increase the throat size. I don't know what the throat is right now, but we can measure those. This is a part of the exhaust I really like. If you compare this to the other W2s, what they did is they raised this floor quite a bit, probably about 3/8 of an inch, which gives the whole port much better air speeds. They actually did a really good job on the exhaust port according to the air speeds. We'll go over them in a bit. Okay, the short side radius on the exhaust could use a little work. You can see exactly where the cutter stopped for its throat cut, and then we have a good sized lip that goes up and around the short side here. So a little bit of work right there will definitely pick this exhaust up. It's actually, that short side is quite straight. It's not laid back much at all. So depending upon how many RPMs you want to work, you could definitely do a little bit of work on that short side. I thought it was interesting how the spring perches are machined on this. They look like they're much deeper than the W2s. I don't know, do you know anything about the valve length on these? Do they have different valve lengths than the other ones? They have to.
Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but I do believe they're the same as W2s.
Really? So what they did is they shrunk those pockets so you could put a taller spring in there for more lift.
Yeah. Yeah, I really don't know all the ins and outs of how the valve train works on this. Mm-hmm. The only thing I know for sure is that on my other set, you have to break these walls down for drainage, because otherwise it just takes a bath in here.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah.
And you know, if you wanted to like machine something to sit in there, it's, you know, you could do that for like a super tall valve and raise your springs. I just don't understand why you would do that, but the seat is kind of really far down, and it limits just how far and how much porting you can do.
Bring it, sure.
If these were up 3/8 of an inch, think about how much higher you could bring up that port. If you can find one of these where this area is not machined, more of a raw casting, you can really do some amazing things with that, because you're going to have a ton of roof to play with.
Interesting. Notice the perches, right? Where the shaft rockers bolt to. Now, is that the same as the other W2s you have?
Yeah, it's the same thing. The rocker gear is interchangeable. I'm pretty sure the valve length is the same, and you know, spring as you need, shim as you need. But otherwise, everything is, you know, W2 and W5 are interchangeable.
Thanks. Okay, we'll take a quick look at our flow numbers. Real low lift flow was actually quite good. It was a little bit lower in the mid-range than I was expecting. I was expecting it to be, 285, 185 or so. So it was about 5 down. Just by looking at the ports, I guessed, I told Rob I thought it would flow, 270 on the intake, and I forget what I said on the exhaust.
Are you thinking like 170, 180 on the exhaust?
Something like that, yeah. I think that's what,
that's what
I said. So at 580 was its max. It went at 278, which was which is pretty darn good. I mean, it's not a gigantic port. Yeah, the opening is tall, but it's basically, I mean, the basic structure is very similar to a 360 port. I didn't show you guys this angle of these. Let's get some light on that. Okay, first time I looked at this, I'm like, you know, that short side could be a little bit wider for an 18-degree head. So we'll take a look at the airspeeds and see if I'm right with that. All right, back to what we were doing. Take a look at our swirl, guys. It's kind of an interesting curve. You usually don't see it like this, right? It starts off, it's got a lot of swirl, even low. 1260 at 0.1 is a lot. You very rarely see that. And then it's got a ton right in the mid-range, and then it mellows out a little bit. And then when it loses it over the short side radius, it comes in pretty hard. See, you've got 2512 at 600, which is that's a nice spin. She completely lost it off the short side at that point because our max airflow was while it was still attached to the short side, or just starting to separate. The exhaust overall, really not bad considering it's you know, not boarded at all. We had a little bit of noise between 100 and 150, and we had some buffeting at 178 where that short side that has a little bump in it was starting to cause problems. I stuck a 1 7/8 pipe on it, you know, at 600, 202, not really bad. Not bad at all. Remember, unported head guides. Unported. Let's take a quick look at our speeds. Pinch speeds are actually quite low because it's a good size opening, and there really is almost no pinch here. It just comes in a tiny bit, and probably with some work you can get rid of that totally. As far as the center of the cylinder, it's a lot faster on the straight wall, which is where all of our Daikin tends to go as well, right? Those could be evened up a little bit to improve efficiency, I have no doubt. But they did a good job as far as our air speeds on the short side. They're almost even from left to right side, and it's not super fast in the middle. So a little bit of work on that short side, I bet these pick right up. We took a look on Stan's website, and there's guys getting 337 out of these. Didn't say how big a port they're cutting it for, but 337 is pretty darn good. Take a look at your exhaust numbers. I was actually impressed with the exhaust numbers. Remember, they shrunk up the height of that exhaust, and look what it does. First of all, it's almost dead even across the top of the bowl between right side and the left side. 313, 314, and then take a look here. 320, 326, almost dead even. A little bit dead in the center, but that tends to happen. This corner's a little fast. A little bit of work, that exhaust port will be banging for its size. Absolutely banging, I have no doubt. All right, I said my piece. I think it's a really nice cylinder head with a little bit of work. I think they'll be killer. Got anything to add, Rob?
Stick around for part 2. You're going to like that.
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Have a good night.